Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to what I'm sure is going to be an exciting Map Talk show tonight. It's truly an international show where we've got a very special speaker all the way from London. Last week, we had a very talented ultra athlete talking to us about grit. And tonight's topic is somewhat similar, and we're going to be touching on the fear of failure. But our speaker tonight is a true drama queen. So often when we talk about a drama queen, we think of somebody and we think of it as a derogatory term. But tonight she is a drama queen. She was born to be the queen of the stage. Even at pre-primary school, she was out there directing the kids in stages. All the way through school, she was there directing shows at both school and at church. She studied BA drama at the University of Pretoria and then worked in Pretoria in allied areas and then moved over to England 3 years ago. And amazingly, she's into what is called, and I don't even know the term, interactive theatre. But she works for an organization called Punch Drunk. And Punch Drunk creates work that disrupts the theoretical places the audiences at the heart of the action. And I can't think of anybody more qualified than Joanne to speak to us tonight about the fear of failure.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you so much, Peter, for that intro. I actually loved the way that you said drama queen is sort of being reframed for me, and tonight I want to talk about that. I want to talk about reframing failure so that it's no longer something that we fear. So I'm excited. I'm excited to talk, and yes, it's great that it links so nicely from last week's talk on grit, and it's something that I think we struggle with when we come to terms with moving forward and moving to what we want to succeed in. So tonight, I think the talk for me is just to be relatable, is to highlight things that maybe we already know, and hopefully to end failure being this sort of scary word. So I want to start with a quote from a movie that my mom and I love to watch, and it's called Letters to Juliet. And one of the letters says the following: Dear Claire, what and if are two words as non-threatening as words can be. But put them together side by side, and they have the power to haunt you for the rest of your life. What if? What if? Well, I have got two non-threatening words of my own: not and yet. Seemingly contradictory words, but once they're put together, they have the power to fool you and those around you into thinking that you are going somewhere when all you are doing is staying put. Not yet. It shields your pride and puts you in control. After all, not yet is not no, is it? It just simply means not now. And it gives this false sense of hope and security that one day I will follow my dreams and pursue my passion with purpose. And one day I will land amongst the stars. The haunting question of what if is quickly muzzled with not yet. And boy, does not yet offer a variety of excuses. Well, the time isn't right, and I'm not fully prepared, and I need to do more of this and less of that before and these excuses, which Andy Stanley puts so well, are like paper walls. They're so thin. They're not real, but they pass off as real ones. These excuses can kind of look like reasons, and we use them to hem ourselves in to protect us. But they often end up hindering ourselves from opportunities. Because let's face it, it's safe to stay where I am, in my comfort zone, with what I know, where people expect me to be, where I am in control. And my pride is at ease. So, not yet. Which is often soon followed by, what if? What if my dreams do come true? And almost as soon as that excitement bubbles up, it quickly evaporates, leaving the body feeling paralyzed by fear. Yes, I finally got to the title of today's talk, Fear of Failure, and that paralyzing feeling that it can invoke. The words not yet only suspend time and almost seem to pause the pursuit of purpose, but it also stops the possibility of failure. Because if I don't do it, if I don't try, then I won't fail. Nothing will have been risked, and therefore nothing failed or lost. No apparent cost, or so it appears. The what if future is lost. As they say, time waits for no man, and no matter what you decide to do, time is always moving on. But this appearance that nothing is lost is merely paper thin, and holes can be poked through. Not yet might appear active in its insinuation of preparation, but not yet is inactive. It's not paused, it's stopped. It's stagnant. It's stuck. And feeling stuck and almost paralyzed by fear is a horrible place to be. And yet the only one stopping you from taking that first step is yourself. And I'm sure we've all heard the famous quote by Michel de Montaigne, "My life has been filled with terrible misfortune, most of which never happened." And there are plenty of studies to prove that most of what we worry about or fear doesn't actually come to pass. And if it does come to pass, we're actually able to handle it a lot better than we thought, or at least we're able to learn a lesson. And when we learn, we grow. And when we grow, we are no longer stuck. So with that said, we have nothing to fear then, really, do we? Holes start to get poked through our paper walls of excuses, and we are left exposed with nothing more to do than just take the first step. But somehow fear and pride still manage to rear their ugly heads. And something that I've learned recently from a research team called I2 Media Research was that if you fail fast, you learn quicker. And I thought, wow. This is the first time that I kind of heard failure in more of a positive light. And this is where I want to lead the talk tonight. That maybe the key is that our perspective on failure needs to shift. So based on that statement of if you fail fast, you learn quicker, then failure is not something to be feared, but something to expect and, dare I say, almost want and seek out. For it is at those points of failure that we learn. And the faster we fail, the quicker we learn. And if our desire is to grow and learn, then we can answer that question of what if with action, with doing it, with done it. That action then leads to learning and learning to growing towards our purpose and our dream. But that positive outlook of failure, although often actually referred to, I mean, when people say, oh, well, they're only successful because they've learned from their mistakes, or to be that successful, you have to have had a few failures along the way. And initially, I admit, like, hearing that sounds very encouraging. And it's easy to digest, actually, because, well, that person succeeded. We know that. And somehow we see failure as just hurdles that they had to jump through on their path to success. But that's not me. And how do I apply that to me? And immediately we start to battle and put them against each other, success and failure. And successful is good and positive and the end goal. And failure is bad and negative and the end, full stop. And when we see it as that, it's not the end at all, but rather it's a crucial part of the journey. But this isn't the reality unless we take action. And that action, we need to do that, we need to reframe the way we look at failure. The popular saying, if you fail to plan, you've planned to fail, although brilliant in its advocacy of planning and implied vision, it insinuates that to fail is negative and it's an unwanted result. And this is where I personally have been quite stuck. Not yet, because I have too much still to plan. And if I'm still planning, then I'm not failing, which is good, right? Well, I'm not succeeding either. And as we've realized, that not yet space is where I'm stuck. So if we decide to reframe failure in a positive light and not deem it the end at all and this sort of doom and gloom, but rather as an indicator of action, then failure means not successful yet. And here we're reframing the not yet in a positive light, and we're encouraging this journey to success. The failure of an action allows us to learn, but it doesn't determine you as unsuccessful or as a failure. And we should simply see failure for what it is. It's something that's not going how it should or how it's expected to. And therefore we can see it as a result and make those adjustments and try again. And failures allow us to ask why, to question so that we can find the answers that we need to go towards success. And when we shift our perception of failure and begin to view it positively and as sort of inevitable, then the fear of failure begins to dissipate. And we almost have a freedom in not seeing failure as this defining factor of whether or not you're capable of following your dreams, but rather as something that is necessary in the process towards realizing your purpose. Removing fear in this way allows you to take action. You can take pride sort of in this opportunity to learn and to grow and associate that learning with your reputation and your ego, as opposed to sort of fearing the humiliation that failure might cause. And you can begin to see it as somebody who's progressing towards their vision and pursuing their purpose with passion. My hope is that we can begin to create the habit of taking action, that we will stop fearing failure, but begin to seek it out. That we will own the motto, the faster I fail, the quicker I learn, the sooner I will succeed. And for every failure is the result, rather, of successfully taking action to answer your what if. Thank you very much.
Joanne, that was absolutely brilliant. I just love the way you posed those questions. And I love the way you asked us to reassess and to reframe our thoughts on failure and how we define it. I just love that finish where we look at failure as a successful answer to the question of what if. I'm really looking forward to discussing it with our panel tonight, which consists of Terence and Marvin, one from the East Rand and one from Pretoria. So we have me sitting in Johannesburg and two other old Transvaalers with us talking about our Joanne from London's presentation. And Marvin, after your talk on grit last week, what is your initial take on what Joanne had to say tonight? Marvin, you muted.
Well, to say, Joanne, you did a fantastic job. So well delivered, so well explained, so well. Such a nice, different perspective for one to consider. It made me think of a quote that I read, which says that failure is not the opposite of success, but it's part of the journey of success. And I really, really loved how she put it on the linked it to that what if question. Well done, just fantastic.
Terence, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to echo what Marvin has said. And Joanne, thank you so much for a really insightful talk. It's true. It is a fact that fear does paralyze. But by, as you suggested, reframing it, we can get past that paralysis. And I love when Joanne says, not successful yet. That's all failure is. It's just not successful yet. It is indeed a journey towards success. So yeah, thank you very much. I think it was an excellent talk. There's so much to take away from that. Excellent. Thanks, Peter.
And what about the 1 day factor? Any comment on the 1 day factor, which is part of the what if and the not yet? It's also 1 day. When is your 1 day?
Yeah, if I can come in here, I mean, it's like Joanne said, it's easy to say not yet, and that is just, to me, it's stalling tactics. I would counter that if with the sentence, if not now, when? If there's an opportunity to do something, let's do it now rather than defer it. And often we do defer it because of our fear of failure. And it's just, in plain terms, it's procrastination, and it's to our detriment.
Yeah. I had a note about that procrastination, and I like the way Joanne spoke about planning. And we think that planning is a good thing, but it can also become one of those procrastination things. We spend so much time planning that we just let opportunities go sailing past. I don't know if anybody feels that way, and I'd like some comment there. Marvin, what do you say on that?
Yeah, I think, if you look at one of the steps in the 5-step methodology of MAP, where we talk about taking action, I think that part really relates to what you were saying. You can get so caught up in the part before that, which is planning, step 3. But if you don't take action, it means nothing. The planning is another what if, and maybe, and another not yet, and another could have. And I think Joanne brought it home nicely when she also spoke about taking action. The Bible talks about faith without action is dead, for those that follow the Bible. But there's truth in that. And the truth is, unless you do something, nothing is going to happen. And then another point that I just thought about is, it's important for us to always remember that we are in control of our own lives. And everything starts and finishes with our choices that we make. we are where we are based on the choices that we make. If you're not happy about where you are now, change, decide right now. And the way to do it is plan, but also take action. You've got to take action, and that one day thing is the easiest excuse. No, I'll do it tomorrow. When it comes tomorrow, I'll do it tomorrow. And unless we decide now we're going to do it, and unless you committed to doing it now, you'll fall behind in that tomorrow, one day type of a phase, which is a sad place to be.
Peter, if I can say something quickly on the what if, I think the saddest part of any life is to reach the end of that and ask that question, what if? Because then it's tainted with regret. And unfortunately, we constantly throughout our lives ask that question, what if, until we reach a point where, it's history. And it's as I say, tainted with regret, which is a sad thing. So the quicker we can move beyond the what if, I believe the fewer regrets we have at the end of this life that we lead. Thanks, Peter.
You're not wearing your Nike shirt tonight, Terence, and would have been quite appropriate. Just do it, and I think that's part of what Joanne was saying to us. One of the things that came to my mind as Joanne was talking, and it's our role as parents stroke grandparents, and how we teach our children. And I've got a dear friend and very successful friend, but she made a big mistake in her life when she was 16, and she found herself pregnant, and it's something that has haunted her, and she has this almost passion about anti-failure, and she regarded it as a failure, and she drummed it into her kids. You've got to be scared of failure. And how do you feel as a parent when it comes to passing on those sort of lessons?
Well, my daughter is 9 years old, 10 years, just turned 10 the other day, and she got 31 out of 32 for an assessment, and she was in tears. She felt like she failed her friends because it was a group assignment. And I had to help her gain perspective and just realize on the one part, she did most of the work within that group assignment. And on the delivery, the part, she just didn't have one element, which is what cost her the 1 mark. But in her view, in her mind, she failed. And it was such a good wake-up call for me as a parent to realize that kids, just like the rest of us, feel this pressure to have to be the very best all of the time, not allowing ourselves to learn from failing, not allowing ourselves to learn from not getting it right all the time. And it just made me also help her realize that it was a great opportunity for me to say to her, you got to practice. The more you practice, and perfect practice is what gets you to be better. And I think had she just done that one part, it would have helped her. But it was also a great chance for me to say to her that even the professionals who are at the top of their game, who are number one in the world in their respective discipline, have to practice. They have to, and they still fail. They're not number one all of the time. So I think it was just, for me, it was a great opportunity for me to learn from my daughter, and a good reminder for me as well that it's okay to fail. It's good to fail. It's part of the success. It's part of your personal journey. Thanks.
I'm pleased with that comment, Marvin. And the question of perfection, and I think perfection is something that can be a stumbling block for us all. That we're so busy aiming for perfection, and we're scared to get started because we're seeking for perfection. Terence, would you like to comment on perfection?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, perfection is in the eyes of the beholder, if I can put it that way. And I think society puts so much pressure, and we as parents put so much pressure on our kids to be perfect. But perfect in whose eyes? I believe everybody has a sense of perfection if left alone. But coming back as well, Peter, to this whole idea of fear of failure, I don't believe we as human beings and anybody is born with the fear of failure. It's something that society influences us, and it becomes part of our very nature. You just have a look at and I'm fortunate enough to have an 8-month-old grandchild at the moment, a grandson whom I spend a lot of time with. And, I can put him on the edge of a bed. And I'll tell you what, if I don't grab him, he's gonna go over.
Yes.
And he tries things so much, and he doesn't know failure at this stage. He doesn't understand failure. But as he grows older, unfortunately, we will make him aware of what failure is. And as Joanne said, we'll make him aware of what failure is in a negative sense. Okay, so I think the challenge for us and those listening is to heed what Joanne said. Let's reframe failure. Let's reframe failure from this day forward and say, as Mark said as well, yes, you failed, but you know what? It's all part of the journey. It's all part of the process. It's not like, our school system as well. I could go on for ages talking about this. It really casts failure in such a negative way that it impacts us for life, actually. Thanks, Peter. Thank you.
Yeah, no, it is something that we need to look at. I know somewhere I've got stats somewhere where it talks about a child and how many times a child hears the words "don't" or "stop," and as they're trying to do these things and explore and experiment, and we somehow and the whole system builds into them that almost that fear of going for these things, and it's something we should be aware of, and something we should be conscious of, and it's something that we should be encouraging. And I talk specifically as a parent, something that we should be encouraging our children to experiment with and to take it up and challenge it all. Marvin, you did the Comrades Marathon, and I just pick on that Comrades Marathon. But in any of those things, how do you achieve a Comrades Marathon?
You got to start by planning. Actually, I think there's various perspectives on what Comrades Marathon, what it takes to do and to finish Comrades Marathon. And I remember listening to a talk by Bruce Fordyce, as well as a talk by Lindsay Perry. And both spoke about, and they kind of broke it up into different ratios. So most people think you've got to spend 80% of your time training, and it's not that. It's more of a mental game. It's more of you reminding yourself that you can do it, and you taking those kilos and breaking down into little chunks and completing each one step by step. And as you finish that, look at the next one and look at the next one. And don't get consumed by this big mammoth 89-kilometer target that you within 12 hours that you need to do. I think also one of the things as we were talking, I was just thinking about how one of the things that stops us from moving forward is we think, well, maybe let me wait until the start of the year, or let me wait until next year to try or to start. And what I like about MAP is MAP encourages us to allow ourselves to make tomorrow the start of that new year, tomorrow the start of that new journey. We don't have to wait until Comrades comes or Comrades finishes. We can start right now. We can choose right now that today is day one, and not have to wait for next year. Thanks.
Yeah, I've had a few experiences in my life where I've got caught in that trap. And I can remember many years ago, I wanted to go to Bible college. And I did everything. I enrolled, I got the books and everything. But I couldn't start until the new year. And I didn't have a plan to what to do between the now and the new year. And I've still got those books, and they're still just taking up shelf space. And it's one of those, and I think it's worth remembering it. I also found that sometimes with MAP, one would look at it and you would say, well, you plan your year, and well, I'll do this next year. Mm-hmm. And I've certainly learned that there's no better time than do it now. Mm-hmm. And if it's good enough to do it next year, it's good enough to start and do it now. So I think that's an important aspect. Anybody had similar experiences?
Yeah, Peter, the calendar, as Marvin alluded to, it's just a man-made way of organizing one's time, one's life, and there's absolutely no need for us to be governed by a calendar. It's useful in certain cases for cycles, etc. But when it comes to our personal lives, I fully agree with Marvin and the way Map for Life puts it is that you start tomorrow, start in the next hour if you have to. There's some things that you don't need that long preparation and planning. You just do it, as you said, in Nike terms. And I keep on asking myself the question when I want to do something, if not now, when? And as soon as I start thinking, well, I'll do it next year, then it's obviously not important enough for me to even consider. So I would suggest ask that question. If not now, when, and why not now? So for me, a calendar is purely just a man-made invention to organize life. Thanks, Peter.
Yeah, I've got one of my mentors. He takes guys to a safari tour into darkest Africa in Tanzania or somewhere up there, and most of these are from North America or Europe. And it's taking them into the middle of the bush. And the first thing they do is to take off their watch, and they learn how to tell the time. And it's a case of the time up there is now.
Very good.
And I think it's a wonderful lesson to be living in the now and to do these things now. And that's part of those questions that Joanne raised right at the beginning of what if and not yet. It's a case of we need to address them now. Any other final comments, guys? On the excuses.
I was thinking of this quote, and it's quite phenomenal. I'm going to quickly read it. It says, "The mind replays what the heart can't delete." The mind replays what the heart can't delete.
Yes.
If you haven't dealt with those failures in your heart, it's going to haunt you, and it's going to play over and over, and you're going to have this little monkey on the back of your, or on your shoulder, just reminding you, oh, you want to try this again? Remember how bad you did the last time? And I will say, who cares? It doesn't matter how many times you've done it. The fact that you get up and you keep going, the fact that you fall down in that run, get up, keep going. It doesn't matter how many times, and it doesn't matter who's watching. The most important thing is it's your commitment to you, and it's up to you to continue on that journey no matter what.
Yes.
And I guess I'm going to lean into that grit talk, but it's more about releasing ourselves and allowing ourselves to know that we will fail. It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. But when that does, it's a matter of getting up and keep going. Keep committed to your journey, because it is your journey. Nobody can make that mistake but you. But nobody's going to learn the lesson from that but you.
And thank you for that, Marvin. One thing we didn't really touch on was the excuses. Could we just have a little bit more comment on excuses And I loved her expression when she spoke about the paper walls and how we use excuses as our reasons for failure.
Yeah, I think the excuses, as Jan mentioned as well, are linked to that fear. We make excuses because we actually don't want to do what we know we want to do. That makes sense. So we use excuses, and if we really look at them seriously, we'll realize that they are just, again, procrastination methods and techniques of not doing stuff now. And we all make excuses in life, and I think a lot of times those excuses are also grounded in fear. And if we can deal with the fear, we remove the need for excuses, and if we approach life with I can attitude,
Yes,
I can,
yes.
and a positive attitude, then the excuses go away. And we should keep on challenging ourselves whenever we come up with an excuse. Is this really justified? Is the reason I'm using for not doing something or doing something really valid? So yeah,
Yes.
I think we are prone to excuses, but we need to test them, and we'll find them coming short, actually.
Thank you, Terence. One last question. Have either of you got an experience you'd like to share or can share with us about how you've learned a lesson from a failure? Can you think of any time where you've actually learned a lesson?
Peter, there are actually many. I can't think of anyone offhand here. But in life lessons, Joanne spoke about time, right? So
Yes.
failing to take action at a particular time, you realize at my age that actually now it's pretty late to do what I should have done 20 years ago. And you learn from it, and going forward, then you say, well, with the time that I have, I'm going to make sure that there are fewer what ifs in my life than there were 20 years ago.
20 years ago, yes.
Or even 5 years
Yes.
ago. You know what I'm saying? So from that, I've learned that procrastination just doesn't cut it, not in this life.
Yeah. Marvin, what about you? What about from the world of
Yeah,
sport?
I can give an example. I can give an example of one thing where I guess you could consider it failure. So I enrolled my dad and I in 2019 to ride, no, 2020, to ride the Cape Argus. He had this desire to want to get to want to ride it. It's 109 kilometers, and we had done it on the tandem, and we hadn't trained together, so we were different fitness levels together. So I said to him, I know I'm fit enough and I can carry us there to the end. But along the journey, with him not having trained enough, he picked up a couple of cramps. So we had to stop at 2 or 3 of the water points. He had 2 or 3 massages, and it was fun. But we lost track of time. We got to Hout Bay, which is, and I was watching the cutoff times along the journey. We got to Hout Bay, and we had just missed the cutoff by probably 20 seconds, 25 seconds.
Yeah.
And at that moment, they closed the road. Well, they opened the road off. They closed it off to our cyclists. And it also started raining. So we were both upset because we got this far, and this is probably 15 kilometers to go to the finish. So we've done, call it 95, 96. Now we all getting cold because it starts raining, and we've got to
Yes.
wait for the bus to come pick us up because the roads are so congested, because the traffic is closed off. We couldn't get my wife to come and pick us up sooner. So it for me, I had to, because I'm competitive, I had to resign to the fact that this was an opportunity for me and my dad to have a moment, which is what we did. The fact that we didn't finish was irrespective. It was the fact that I had this dream of doing it together, and actually we did it. We did it together. We may not have the medal together, but he does have a T-shirt, and I did get my brother rode last year in his honor, and so we've got a medal in his honor. But the fact that we did it together on the same bike, and I was able to get us that far, just made me feel proud. It was just a good moment.
Wonderful, wonderful. And I think it's a wonderful point. I wonder whether we can have Joanne come in and wrap up our discussion. I'd love to hear what she's got to say about what we've said. Joanne, did you listen to that? And
Yeah. It was very cool. I read a few things down that I thought that I really enjoyed, and I think things about like curiosity, as like children, to have that curiosity and to take the step because we want to learn. So that was really cool, and that you can or I can attitude. And I thought of the train going up the mountain. I think I can, and so that was really cool. And I think I watched something the other day that talked about guiding children safely to take risks, and that's how they can learn, and just how to echo onto that point of not saying don't or stopping someone, but rather just safely kind of helping them along. And I think teaching that risk-taking sort of character, and to get up and keep going, and to split things up. I really like that idea of like splitting tasks up and sort of seeing it as one thing at a time. And I think that also helps in not fearing the failure, because if we're looking at the ultimate dream as like the benchmark for my next step, which is crazy, but I tend to do that, we sort of see the drop of that kind of idea of failing that major dream as like what the next step will be. And then we just feel like we can't take the step at all. But if we break it down to like 1 kilometer, as Marvin said, then it's like, okay, like it's just 1 kilometer. I can do that. That's fine. And I think that's like so helpful in going forward on people's journeys, and seeing failure as just part of that journey, and just taking it one step at a time. So yeah.
Wonderful. Joanne, you finished off your speech with a wonderful last phrase. Would you like to close off the session by repeating it? Can you?
Yes, I think it was the one with for that every failure is the result of successfully taking action to answer your what if. So every failure is the result of successfully taking action to answer your what if.
Wonderful.
Yeah. And I just read this down and I remembered something that I saw in a film once was this idea of 20 seconds of courage. All it takes is 20 seconds of courage. And it links to that 1 kilometer, like just those 20 seconds, just that little bit of courage. So much can happen and so much can move forward. But yeah, thank you very much.
So I think to our audience out there, just remember that 20 seconds of courage can lead to a lifetime of change. Thank you for being with us, and we look forward to seeing you next week.